everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today for this UNU-INWEH Science Talk. I'm delighted to be your host. My name is Dr. Miriam Axel. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, we're delighted to have you here, and we hope you'll join us again in the future. Our weekly series showcases the exciting research of UNU-INWEH affiliates, and I'm pleased to share that all of our previous science talks are available on demand. You can watch the entire 2024 series as well as the 2025 series on our website. That's unu.edu/INWEH/science-talks. Today's talk, like all of our others, will be recorded, and the recording will be made available shortly after the session. We'll also conclude with an interactive Q&A session at the end, so please put your questions in the Q&A box, and I will be sure to share them with today's speaker. And now it's my great honor and pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Professor Nirupama Agrawal. She's a professor of disaster and emergency management at York University with over 30 years of professional experience. And at UNU-INWEH, she's adjunct professor, disaster and emergency management. She has a PhD in water resources from Kyoto University in Japan and a master's in hydrology from the Indian Institute of Technology in Roorkee, India. She was a researcher at the University of Newcastle in the United Kingdom before joining Western University, Canada, followed by teaching at Brandon University. And her research and teaching interests include a range of topics from natural hazards, disaster risk, flood risk control management, and community risk perception and participation for resilience building, as well as multi-criteria decision support systems. And she has supervised and served as an examiner for over 60 graduate students, published over 60 refereed articles, and nearly 20 book chapters. And now, without further ado, it's my great pleasure to turn it over to you, Professor Agrawal. Thank you so much. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the invitation to your entire team to invite me to share my work. So that bio was actually quite dated. I didn't know this was it. I've also authored a textbook. It's called Natural Disasters and Risk Management, an Introduction for Canada, like it's specifically for Canada. So you can look me up there for the textbook. Okay, I will share my screen now. So you all see my screen? Yes.
Yes, perfect.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to turn my camera off because sometimes my internet connection drops me when everything is on here. So I'm very happy to share my work. It's on extreme weather warnings, reflections on the role of broadcast meteorologists. So I did this work.
Sorry, Professor, would you be willing to try keeping your camera on, and then if there's any issues, we could turn it off?
Oh, okay, absolutely.
Thank you.
So there we go. So this work recently has been accepted. It's not yet published yet, but accepted in the Journal of Extreme Events. And we carried out this work with my colleague, Dr. Jennifer Spinney. So it's going to come out soon. It's in typesettings stage right now. So starting with the background, how we conceived this idea and to dive deeper into this concept and issue is that we've been watching recent events, extreme weather events, may those be tornadoes or extreme rain or hailstorms, atmospheric river. So we try to look at go deeper into how the entire system of warnings works in Canada. So the Federal Agency Environment and Climate Change Canada monitors weather through instruments. So they have all the radar and satellite coverage, and they carry out also modeling. So they have meteorologists in-house, and they carry out modeling as well. They also actually get information from other agencies like in Natural Resources Canada for other, forest fire types of events. And it issues extreme weather watches, warnings, and alerts, and provides guidance on definitions and also threshold criteria for weather-related hazards, like what should be the lower threshold, higher threshold, lower threshold for an event to be declared as a hazard, or what level of hazard. Then news outlets and media platforms, emergency management professionals, and others use this information in their work, functions, and services. So that's the background of how the system works. So there is one main federal agency that that's responsible and takes care of this kind of information. So just to give you a rundown and a sense and perspective on what we have been seeing in recent years. So I've just listed a few. 2024 hailstorm in Calgary, second costliest turned out to be. 2024 wildfire in Jasper, then 2023 flooding in Nova Scotia. Alerts were issued. By the way, though no alert was issued for the hailstorm, but wildfire in Jasper, it was in the list of top 10 disasters of 2024, but there wasn't an alert for public using the national public alert system or any such thing, even by Environment Canada for that event. The flooding in Nova Scotia in 2023, alerts were issued, but they were confusing and distracting in response efforts. So the response team couldn't really coordinate effectively and efficiently based on the areas they were told that the flooding was heading towards. Then also in 2023, tornado warning in Ottawa, that missed the mark. Barrie, the warning came seconds after the tornado, actually in the region. So tornado actually swept through a region before the warning came. 2022 tornado warning was issued in Uxbridge, Ontario, and alert ready system was used. But although, like any other time, tornado warnings are tricky. They're very challenging, but it did come, it was issued, wasn't really effective. People did say that it came. So that's what we are going to look into during this talk. Then in 2021, the Barrie tornado really also missed the mark. Actually, it came a few minutes after in that region where the tornado swept through the region. Then 2021, severe flooding due to the atmospheric river in British Columbia. Also, there were confusing patchwork of warnings issued, not issued, because this was going on for about a week, and the warnings couldn't keep up, and they were not issued using the public system. So just to give you an idea, you can also look up for the past. This is just the top 10 most impactful weather stories of 2024. Environment Canada also maintains a database of previous years, all the way to 1995. They maintain, so you can look it up, 10 most impactful weather stories of all the years past. And you can see here, Jasper made the list, number 1, and the Calgary hailstorm, number 5. So they made the list. So we had to do this, and we needed to study this, and we needed to think about how to go about doing it. So we set a goal. We aimed to identify the root causes of inefficiencies and areas for improvement in the Canadian system for extreme weather forecasting, warnings, and public communication. Then, so that was the goal. Then how to achieve that goal, we set 3 objectives for us to achieve that goal. So we decided to review the Environment Canada website, its structure, format, layout, and the nature of information is available over there. Then we thought of examining fundamental concepts of risk communication theories. So as the baseline to compare current communication, how it's carried out now, and to see are there any areas where we can pinpoint gaps, identify gaps, and so that's where the improvement comes from. And then we conducted in-depth interviews with broadcast meteorologists who routinely deliver the weather to the public across the country through television, radio, cell phones, and social media. And I didn't mention the public alert system is a separate system. So meteorologists will not do that, but someone else does that. But they do have authority to use the system. So a quick overview, the first point, looking at, examining, reviewing the Environment Canada website. So for this part, I want to take you to their website to see. So this, the screen capture is from another day. So I just wanted to look at what's happening today. So this is how, when you start navigating through an Environment Canada website, you start with weather, climate, and hazards. So, and then I'm going to take you to get your weather, I think, severe weather. Okay, so that's the link. And then you go to weather information. Weather information, and this is what comes up. So what you see here is weather information. I'm going to turn on the new lightning. Now they also have, you can see where the radars are available. I can play this thing. And you can see the system pattern of storms and weather system is moving through the country. Now over here in this table, you can also search for a particular location, but you can expand this one. Then you can see British Columbia has a few rainfall warnings and one wind warning. Then you can see Newfoundland. We just saw that there is a weather system passing through the East Coast, the Maritimes, the Yukon. So go into every one of those, and then you can see details of that. So that being said, I'm going to go back to, so that's how it works. So you saw there is there is this kind of coverage, and there's a table, and you can go into read to find out more, which is in text form. So you need to read the text to be able to understand whether you are in or out if you are using the website. So then we moved on to looking at extreme weather communication. So risk, what does it entail? So it's central to its uptake because there needs to be needs to have trust in the system to heed to the warnings when they are issued. So we need to look at how it's conveyed, how convenient it is for users to access and understand it in a timely and meaningful way. So we drew guidance from risk communication concepts. And starting with, I'll just share this one, is the basic communication model. So very, very basic, was proposed in 1949. So you can see how basic it is. Just talking about components and factors involved in any communication, not just risk, but any communication needs an information source. The message needs to be designed and signal has to be transmitted through a signal. Also in the middle, you're trying to eliminate any noise there might be, and then the signal is received by a receiver, the message and the destination. The destination could be, is it experts, is it meteorologists, is it the public, so that sort of thing. So just the basic structure, and that we had maybe even prior to 1949, but we chose this one to go with. Then looked at another model proposed in 1990 by Milletti and Sorensen. And this is kind of expanding on that communication theory concept, the basic elements, basic factors. So this is rooted in grounded theory, and it's for benchmarking. So first, we are benchmarking all the factors involved in communicating risk. So we need to look at environment, natural, and technological, so that because we are not just the theory is applicable to any kind of risk from natural or technological. We need to monitor, detect, and interpret. We need to prepare the method, the warning, actually, look at its content and what channel to use to communicate it. And then message attributes will have a content, a style, how it's written and prepared, and source attributes, the information about the source and familiarity, and also looking at social and psychological and physiological attributes. So we'll talk about in detail later on when we talk about the interviews, actually. So I also extracted this from the original paper and the report prepared by the authors, the proponents of the model, Miletti and Sorensen, to give you an idea of the basic the concepts people were developing at the time. This was in 1990. The report was prepared for the Federal Agency of Emergency Management. What is it called? FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency of the United States. So they provided some examples of warning channel selection, just to highlight a few things. You have the type, the population subgroup. So we need to look at who the messaging is for. So the message has to be tailor-made for that. And just to highlight how primitive, we still do door-to-door. And we still do loudspeakers if we have to, especially for floods. So those are the primitive methods, but sometimes you need to go back and actually adopt that when the technology fails or there's no power, or your system is rooted in AI power or anything that's dependence, the weak links or dependencies on other systems, and something fails and your system is not working. So that's that. Another example I got from their original report is that style and content of a warning message. So specificity, consistency, accuracy, certainty, clarity. So those are the very, very basic components that we should be mindful of. Then I'm not going to read the entire list, but basically environmental attributes are important because cues and proximity, distance, time, social, physical, social attributes are important when you're designing a message and deciding on the method of how to transmit the message. Psychological and physiological, which is if people have disabilities, psychological is when how people will perceive the warning. Is it so you don't want to panic the public, that sort of thing. Then the another model, this is the last one that we took into account, is protective action decision model. We did this because when we were sifting through all the risk communication theories and fundamentals, we came across this concept that when people see a negative something, a negative message, negative warning, which is all, they tend to worry about it. But when you say the negative, okay, there is a storm coming and you must take shelter or shelter in place or evacuate, whatever that might be, if that is also attached with something positive, like here is what you can do, some positive actions. So that's protective action decision model. When people see that, oh, there is something we can do, then their decision, they will take that into account into their decision making, whether to heed the warning or do something about it, or do something about it now for the future, that sort of thing. So I'll talk about individual factors, what you see here, how the model works, and try to align these components as segments with the interviews to give us a sense of how they align or not align the theories. So we prepared a set of 20 questions to engage with broadcast meteorologists from various television channels who routinely disseminate weather to the public. So on purpose, we chose meteorologists who are trained in meteorology, not journalists, but meteorology. The questions covered a wide range of issues: how the weather information was received, how the content of a warning is designed, how is the choice of format determined, heuristic of an analytical. Heuristic is based on color, shape, design, texture, that sort of thing, and analytical. So heuristic is just you look at it and you grasp something right away. Analytical is you're also providing risk matrix or some more information, which is you have analyzed the data and you have also this information. So how do you decide which one to go for? Should it be complicated? Should it be too simple? How the warning flows from a sender, which is a broadcast meteorologist in this case, to a receiver, which is the public, because they only broadcast it for the public through a channel, which could be print, radio, TV, phone, social media, etc. So how do they do that? And impacts of positive and solution-oriented messaging. So here we are talking about receivers' perceptions of control and autonomy. So receiver also should not feel that they're told to do something and they have no control. They should also feel that they have agency and autonomy. If they want to read up on it, and if they want to be, then they can go. And then, so there is actually other models are talking about where should I go for more information? Do I need more information? That sort of thing. So now we're getting into the actual quotes from meteorologists that when we engaged, we interviewed. So we interviewed about 37, we contacted about 37 individuals, but we got responses. We got responses more than the interviews materialized. Only 11 interviews materialized. And also to point out here, this work was done in 2023. And it took a while for us due to a variety of reasons, to get to the publication now. And the participants, overall, they were very enthusiastic. They were happy that somebody is looking into this because they also wanted to, and they had a lot to say, to share with us. So let's see some of the stuff they said. So first of all, they said forecasts are never perfect. And they all agreed with that. They're never perfect. We divided all the interviews, the 20 questions and all the interviews. The questions had sub-questions into, we classified them into categories. So we are calling this one as challenges. So they shared with us that that I compile a large amount of information in a very short period of time and make it very concise in order to communicate that to our viewer. So there's also this keyword concise. Now, are we simplifying too much? And that should be taken into account. So they are thinking about these things. Then one says, I'm covering 3 provinces. This is the Maritimes worth of weather. We are not the weather network that has unlimited, weather content time. Meaning weather network, this is all they do. That's their job. They do this all day long, whereas the broadcast meteorologists, they do a lot of things during their day, and they have to deal with different medium to disseminate: social media, radio, television, and all of that. So the last quote here is Environment Canada needs more meteorologists who can issue the watches and warnings. So they're feeling that there is lack of resources. They're feeling overworked. That's one of the challenge. So then they pointed out, I see, I didn't realize something here. So they also pointed out that it is very important that we know the community. If they are saying if the meteorologists are new to the place, the lack of local knowledge may hinder their ability to convey the weather risk effectively and accurately. So wanted to point that out using those small segment of the model. Environmental attributes. It does talk about social, psychological, and physiological attributes. It's important to know the population you are preparing your message for. And the other model, protective action model, also talks about environmental cues and social cues. And so those are the models, the theories, and they do align with what meteorologists are actually thinking about and facing in their work when they do their work. So there's another quote related to that is radio weather might be relayed by anyone straight out of Environment Canada or Weather Network. That's the difference between a trained meteorologist and a journalist. And that goes along with the monitoring, detecting, and interpreting. So they have to be educated and trained in this work. So they cannot be just a journalist. And they said that, and that is also included in the model, one of the models, benchmarking models. So that's included in that. Then they mentioned that the system we are using is archaic. It's old and it's siloed. One says, I find they're so archaic. The other one says there could be a better way for us to collaborate as meteorologists across Canada. There's never any sort of networking. And they compared their situation with the US's National Weather Service, which is having has annual convention in the US, and they said we don't have anything like that in Canada. So that's important, and I think I will connect that with the both models, two models. This one here, although it's everywhere, there's parts of networking, the importance of networking and talking to other people. You can relate that to information sources. You can relate that warning messages. You can channel access and preferences, what they prefer, what they have access to, and also this part, situational facilitators. And we don't talk to each other. And those things are important according to risk communication theories. And over here as well, monitoring, detecting, interpreting, and look at the message, the content, the style, how they prepare, unless people talk to each other about that. Most of the meteorologists we interviewed, they work alone. They are one-person show in their office. There's not even another person. They do their shift. They prepare everything, the warning, the message, and they do their shift, and then they go. They don't have the time to even call. Sometimes if there is a close friend, another meteorologist somewhere else, they will say, well, I have a little doubt here. Do you also see this on your end? And so that sort of thing they do, but rarely, not much. They didn't say that they do this routinely. Then they mentioned about georeferencing style and source issues. So they said, sometimes it would be nice to see that at least color-coded type of consistency between weather warnings, between being issued across different platforms and different organizations. And the other code is, among other improvements, georeferenced polygons county by county, as it is the case in the US with warnings and watches, will enhance the uptake and trust. So I'll elaborate a little bit on that in the next slide, but just here, you see the model talks about the credibility, familiarity, the content, and the style. So consistency is important for trust building in the public. And that is, it's also included in the other model, the protective action model. So they talked about someone who lives how the areas we see in the warning. So you're given a big polygon and to say this is the risk area, but you don't know that could be hundreds of kilometers across. So someone said someone who lives in the Fort McMurray region, for example, in northeastern Alberta, the warning zone for Fort Mac is hundreds and hundreds of kilometers wide, from north to south. Well, not everybody in that area is going to get hit with that severe weather. And that, I think, breeds the public becoming less trustworthy. And so one example is here. I want to share with you at this point. I think I have it. Oh, I have it included. So we use this sample. We use this sample of actual Environment Canada issued warning for British Columbia in the interview, during the interview. So I showed the sample and asked them to share their insights, what they thought, their impression of this, how this is done. So this is what they said about that, that the huge area. For example, I am coming to you from Toronto, and if there is a warning issued for Toronto for a snowstorm, Toronto is, so it's a large area. Am I in or out? Unless I know that, I probably will not be interested. Most of the times you think, oh, they say a lot of things, but sometimes they don't pan out or it doesn't happen, and you end up doing all kinds of things, but nothing happens in the end. So something did happen, but you were just your area was not covered. So and in this sample, you notice that they also have a matrix included. This matrix is a risk matrix. So here is the most risk area, and then medium risk, low risk, and etc. And there is also some text. So you don't see, probably the font is not big enough, but increased risk of heat-related illness, etc. So there's 4 bullet points there. Over here, you see the different signs used for different types of hazards. And so you can see, so that's good. That part is good. I'm going to go to the next slide to show you what else is included in that entire warning message. Certainty, how certain they are. So they're talking about medium time frame, temperature, medium basis, thunderstorm, low, how certain they are. So these things are for certainty, how confident they are in their warning. Then there is key points there, and then there is long range forecast for 3 days, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And then there's a list of links for more information. So what I got from Broadcast Meteorologists about this is it's too long, it's too much. And so they pointed out number of gaps and number of potential improvements that can be made. If this is a system we are using, going back to this, then it's a lot. And unless it's just for experts, we have to. So this is what they said. So you get this product from Environment Canada, and then they have to tailor it to what public might be interested. So just a quick look, but also a comprehensive information, not too simple, not too analytical, but so that's the challenge that they face. They have to do this. Here, I'm talking about, someone said too many times Environment Canada, they're worried that people will just sort of stop paying attention. So on that point, I captured this from the original report by the proponent of the model, benchmarking model, Milletti and Sorensen. And they did mention this. But they did say, but they said it's mostly a myth. The cry wolf syndrome, if warned often and falsely, people, it is feared, will not believe a true warning. While this may be a legitimate concern in some cases, it has not been proven to be true for warnings in general. So that's what they say, but so you can call it theoretical, but myths are around, and a lot of times we say we want to dispel some of the myths related to hazards and disasters, but they still linger on. Then they talked about models and their limitations in general, and also limitations in models. So they're saying to know why one storm produces a tornado and another one doesn't, we don't have a full handle on that. Even in the US, for tornado warnings, you're lucky if you get 15 to 30 minutes of lead time. So that's the challenge with tornadoes. It's a very rapid, fast-moving storm, and it's very difficult to track it down accurately. So you can see it's coming and it's going, and you can see it's moving, but precisely to tell where it's going to be, that's difficult. Then it also talked about what would it take to develop a national standard based on a color-coded system with a map showing specific areas of risk levels. And I'll just read the next one in that box. Would it be useful to have a two-person team, a talented meteorologist, and a great communicator to develop and disseminate warnings? So that's where that thing comes, how the message is designed, and the style and the language and all of that. So a technical person will provide the technical information. If there's another person who is an expert in risk communication or communication, then probably will do a good job. So just also want to, a thought came to my mind, I thought I'll share with you, even Steve Jobs, when he was working on his Apple products, actually, he took a class on calligraphy because he was very mindful of how the product should look, what people will like, eye-pleasing, and the ease of use, those features. So he was mindful about that. So I thought that I'll just throw that in here. So the next box talks about they're talking about, there's the University of Washington website is one of their favorite. So he says, it's one of my bookmarks. They have such a great satellite and radar feature that you can it's very, very easy to use. And that's important for them, easy to use, because their time is short for them and they have to do a lot. And should have a graphic that shows a map of the area with impact-based risk. And that's what they're thinking about. So some of the things they recommended, I've not included everything because in the interest of time here, but they said, I think I put that also before, to develop a national standards and protocols for issuing weather warnings across different agencies and media outlets based on a color-coded system with a map showing specific areas of risk levels, and include locally relevant details in the weather and adopt targeted warnings in extreme situations. So I can think of so many extreme situations when targeted warnings would have helped. In Nova Scotia flooding, actually, that 4 people died there, and that could have been saved. Also, they said drastic changes in new thinking, such as employing specialized and trained personnel in various skills, such as design, psychology, sociology. Just shared that Steve Jobs example, and creating an environment conducive to collaboration are needed for enhanced efficiencies and better outcomes. And they said, which I put again here, have a 2-person team, meteorologist and a communication expert to develop and disseminate warnings. Then these are the reflections we put together. My colleague, Dr. Spinney, and I, we put together, we thought interviews reveal some obvious and other subtle systemic issues, including potentially overlooked fundamental components of risk communication theories that we talk about. So I've tried to include, in wherever I could during the presentation. And we think forecasting uncertainties present challenges as broadcast meteorologists. contend with the inherent unpredictability of weather and adapt to evolving weather conditions. Weather systems, they move fast. Some of them move fast, some of them just stagnate and linger in one area for days, like the atmospheric river in 2021 over British Columbia. So depending on what it is, that's what they're dealing with here. Then despite the challenges, broadcast meteorologists assert that their priority lies in people's safety and ensuring critical information reaches the public promptly. However, they struggle with Environment Canada's conservative approach to approving a warning. So they have to give a green light before the warning can go out and be disseminated. So that's where if a meteorologist is located in a remote area, small place, he can be more confident about what he's seeing than the Environment Canada. So they could be far away. They could be 100 kilometers away where they're measuring the instruments or monitoring the weather. So they could be far away. So in those circumstances, they said that we feel that we are very certain we want to issue this warning, but they cannot. Then risk of unintended consequences is greater when misinformation, disinformation are circulating. So it becomes critical to have credible, robust information channels. And lastly, they said they did not feel adequately integrated with the Environment Canada's approach for updates, new products, tools, and technologies before they are released to the public for consumption. So I have just pulled one example here from the states, the Weather Service, National Weather Service of the states. They changed their format for a severe thunderstorm warning in 2021. So starting April 2021. So this is how it was at the time. And this is what they wanted to change into from April 2021. And they presented this. So if we were to do something like that, I just pulled this to make a point. What they are saying here is that if something like this is under consideration, they should be at the table to weigh in on the product. Just last week, I think we were both Dr. Spinney and I separately. We didn't know actually. The report was contacted by a reporter from National Observer talking about the National Public Alert System. So this article, the reporting came out on October 28. You can go to National Observer to read the full article. So the context was that the National Public Alert System the contract is going to expire next year, and should it be continued? So I'm talking in favor of it, and the points I'm making, they're all in the reporting in the article. Now I want to leave you with some food for thought, just a quick 3-4 slides to talk about very, very recent events where you couldn't really predict or forecast it was predicted, the rain had been predicted to fall over a period of 8 hours. Instead, much of it arrived in 20 minutes, and that's Brooklyn, New York. Just last week, actually, October 30th, 2 men died in basement flooding. So this is what happened there. Although forecasting was there, prediction was there, but actually this is what actually happened. The another example is from 11th October. This is how more than 600 hikers, actually they do it. This is on the Tibet side of the Himalayan mountain range. On the Tibet side, they go, when they left, it was like this. And all of a sudden, everything just turned upside down, and they ended up, they had to be rescued. Some people died. They had to be rescued. More than 600 hikers were there, trapped in this snowstorm. This example is from Lake Tahoe in Nevada. Everything was fine, sunny day, first day of summer. And the forecast was sunny in the morning and partly cloudy with a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms in the afternoon, light winds, becoming light winds about 10 miles per hour in the afternoon, wave heights less than a foot. And then what happened, what ended up happening is this. The investigation was, of course, carried out, revealed a rare set of circumstances that led to the unexpectedly dangerous day, and 8 people died in this one. All of a sudden, everybody went out, and this is what happened. The one last example I want to share with you is from 1987, and it became infamous for the things that unfolded during that time. 1987 in Britain, we didn't have the technology and the tools we have today. So there was a person called the BBC says, no, it's here. So earlier today, a woman rang the BBC and she said she heard that there was a hurricane on the way, and the main meteorologist in charge, Michael Fish, in charge for this storm, said, well, if you're watching, don't worry, there isn't. He's not seeing it, and he said so. But it was an extremely dangerous event. Pregnant women were stranded in knee deep water. They couldn't, the car wouldn't start. They couldn't go to the hospital. So lots of disastrous stories about that. And so he was interviewed recently, and this article actually came out in New York Times just a few days ago. And they are talking about when, reflecting on that event, it became so infamous that a public inquiry was held. And Michael Schiff is still alive, and he was reflecting on it. So he's saying, when we are making weather forecasts, we are dividing the atmosphere up into boxes. The smaller those boxes, the more accurate the weather forecast. And in those days, the box was 150 kilometers wide grid. But today we have much smaller box, maybe a kilometer and a half to 2 kilometer grid size we have today. So it was this event, I included this, brought it up because this was also included. I mean, it is embedded, etched in people's memories. It was also included in 2012 Olympics, the UK Olympics. See this? It was the part of the opening ceremony. Everyone was showed this, and also the clip everyone was showed when he's talking. So I thought that was very interesting. So these things happen. So with that, thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Professor Agrawal, for a really, really fascinating presentation. I really appreciated how you brought all of this in the words of those that you interviewed. Really just very interesting work. My first question is about that last point that you raised about the challenges with the smaller the boxes, the greater the accuracy. And I'm just wondering if any of your interviewees talked about potential opportunities either in like crowdsourced data or citizen science data or other technologies to kind of reduce the size of those boxes for, hyperlocal forecasting.
Yeah, they did talk about it. And like I said, it was conducted in 2023. At that time, they were talking about it. And I was digging into what Environment Canada is doing now. I think they are onto that sort of thing. And what we want to see eventually is smaller grids, a kilometer by kilometer. And that would be really helpful. But they did talk about it, but at the time, it wasn't available to them. But for that, I should add this also with that, is that for that, they were spending time on looking at the models that were used in the States. And if there was something they could use, they were able to use that. But they had to do it on their own. So this is what they were doing, spending their time during their shift doing.
To follow up on your point about them, working with others in the States, was there any discussion about, it seems like since 2023, there have been incredible budget cuts to the US national system. How interconnected are our two weather systems, and how much of a gap would there be with funding cuts in one country?
Yeah, we are very much impacted. So we are not, before we had agreements, we were sharing information freely available. National Weather Service or National Hurricane Center down in the south and the US, we were using them, but now even they are struggling to keep up with the information flow. I think we are all struggling with that right now. Even what we have, we don't have anymore. Okay, should I stop sharing my screen actually?
Sure, I can pull it.
Okay. Yeah, now I see you guys better.
Okay. Thank you so much for the presentation. And I like the diagram you used to display how the messages are generated and through to the end user. And we learned that the end users accept this information if they have the motivation, capability, and opportunities. And you highlighted on the capability, sorry, the motivation, which is the ability to control or have control over these messages or information. Could you tell us how capability serves as a hindrance to how they accept climate or weather warning information?
Capabilities of the forecaster, the meteorologist, or the capabilities of the public receiver?
The public receiver.
Receiver capabilities. So that's a great question. So their capabilities, what they're capable of. I could think of the tools they have. Are they using their phones? Going back to the the National Public Alert System, we know that as Alert Ready. So we know this system. So you have to have it on your phone? So if you don't have a smartphone, you don't have it. That sort of thing. The other capability I would say is the age group. What age group they are? If they are young youth, do they care about it? And do they even look at it? Their phones are silent most of the time. Other capability of people like myself, I go on the website to check. Actually, I go on 3 websites to check the weather because I don't trust Weather Network. I don't trust AccuWeather is good, but the format, the layout is not great. Again, talking about, is it eye pleasing? Is it easy to grasp and quickly grasp and go? Those are some of the capabilities. Education is one. The neighborhood socioeconomic is one. Do they have even at the time? They wake up every morning, they're thinking about their day, making, earning a living. They're not thinking about whatever happens. Do they have the luxury and the time to develop some of those capabilities to be on top of the weather, if there is extreme weather coming or not?
Thank you.
Thank you for your amazing presentation. So my question is basically an extension to my colleague's question, but nowadays we know that social media is the primary source of information for many people around the world. And having worked in environmental fact checking for a few years, I know that misinformation and disinformation tend to rise during these extreme events. For instance, if you pull out your phones and look up the keyword HARP, which stands for High Frequency Auroral Active Research Program, which is a military program by the United States, you find a lot of misinformation, environmental misinformation that's actually paired with legitimate satellite images. And so when there's an extreme event, social media is flooded with misinformation and disinformation, which sows confusion, which prevents the public from finding the truth. So a lot of this misinformation is actually targeted at the public and the governments. For instance, a lot of it says that accuses, for instance, the U.S. government of manipulating weather engineering and that kind of stuff. So my question is that if we assume that the public accepts all this false information about the source of these extreme events, for instance, if they think their governments are responsible for these problems, then how do we accept that the public to accept the information that's actually now is being conveyed by their governments to save them, to protect them against all these like extreme events?
Yeah, so what can I say about that is that we are struggling with that a lot in every aspect in life. This is one, weather forecasting and predictions is one. So we try to, I think, okay, so I'm not a meteorologist and a weather forecaster, but they have to do a better job in saying, really repeating this message again and again. You check the website, the link. So it's www.weather.gov for the US, and for us it's ec.gc, what is it, gc.ca, the gov. So that has to be really embedded in everybody's minds. These are the credibility of the source. How do you, in the age of, you mentioned a lot of things, but TikTok gets people carried away and they will believe in anything they see on TikTok. So it's challenging. It probably will be the challenge of this decade to somehow get around that. And with AI, so many artificially generated images and messages, it's so hard to, filter those through, take out the noise and get to the actual message. It's a challenge. People have to, Environment Canada, Natural Resources Canada, the meteorology, all the weather forecasting thing, websites, stations, agencies, they have to work together. Actually, they have to come together to come up with a plan and strategies and tactics how to deal with this. It's very dangerous. I mean, we have seen this in COVID years, how much it's so dangerous. I have seen in my building. So just to say about 2013 snowstorm, when everything the power was out for up to 72 hours, actually. People were stranded and they had to be rescued from the roads, and people near my building, actually, they ended up sheltering here in the building. So I was so curious, why were you on the road when there was a warning? And I didn't go out, they didn't leave the house, and they said the same thing. Oh, these warnings, we don't trust these warnings. They say a lot of things, but they don't happen. So it's one of those things. But 2013, of course, TikTok wasn't so popular. It was just social media.
Thank you, Dr. Agarwal, for that presentation. My question is actually also an extension of Abraham's. And for some context, we're working on a project focused on behavioral application of behavioral sciences to adaptation and social inclusion in Malawi, Tanzania, and Burkina Faso. And one of the research questions is really looking at, you presented on the delivery side of that information, but on the adoption side of that information. And so working with farmers to understand from a behavioral science lens, what are things that we can do to improve the adoption of climate information. So just maybe broadening out the question earlier, if you have looked at all that, what other factors beyond capability or even including capability are associated with improved adoption of climate information?
Yeah, absolutely. That's very important. I think it's imperative we did that. We have to do this. So looking at what turns people off. So if you're using behavioral science, I think that's a great idea. You've seen I've only shared 2 models, but there are plenty of models. Probably you know more than I do. And every model talks about you're doing a study or preparing some messaging for a certain population, for a certain receiver or target audience. If the audience is farmers, you must have farmers at the table to tell you what they will actually listen to and what they would like to ignore. Something puts them off completely, so don't do that kind of style in your messaging, content and style. So do something that they are open to, receptive to, and that's why I mentioned the positive, the protective measure model, which is like if you provide them, so say something like you can expect drought of a certain intensity in the next 5 years or something, but what they should do, what they could do, what resources are available to them. So they will be open to discussing, they will be open to coming to the table. Sometimes, so like I said, probably you are looking at more models than I do. But sometimes it's just the information is too analytical, and it has to be a little bit simple, but also not so simple that it loses critical details in the content. But if you're preparing something for the farmers, it should be just for the farmers, and you shouldn't use the same messaging and same everything, the entire product that you prepared for another population. So I think we need to have targeted messaging, and also the purpose of messaging. What is it for? Like, I'm only talking about weather warnings, but depending on what it is about and depending on who it is for, I think those are the things, and they will tell you. They will tell you what they would like to pay attention to and what they just ignore.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Agarwal, for a really fabulous presentation. Thank you for sharing your time and this research with us, and we look forward to welcoming you back again soon.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really enjoyed. Thank you. Should I just sign off?
Yes, you're fine too.
Okay.